Hey everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to take a look at how to graph a linear equation from point-slope form. Okay, so we're using our x1 and our y1 as our starting point, and from that starting point, your second point is going to come from your slope. It's going to tell you which direction to go in. So similar to when we did slope-intercept form, we started with the y-intercept as our first point, and then we use the slope to figure out our second point. What we're doing here is we're going to use the point that's given by our x1 and our y1 as our starting point, and that's going to tell us where we put our first point, and then from there we're going to use the slope rise over run to get our second point. Okay, so to identify what our starting point is, you want to look at your x1 and your y1. Now when I do this, you're pretty much using the opposite sign of what you see here because you have to keep in mind that the form already has that negative sign or that minus sign in front of your x or y. Okay, so in this case, this is a positive 1, which means my starting point would be negative 1 on the x, and it's a negative 3 or a minus 3, which means my y1 is negative 1 comma 3. So x1 and y1. Okay, as you can see, that's where this graph started right here. This point right there would be negative 1 comma 3, and then the slope that we have here is negative 2 over 3. That's rise over run, so that means, again, as you can see in this graph, we went down 2 to the right 3, and that's where the second point is coming from. Okay, they connect those points, and that would be your line. All right, let's take a look at a couple more here. All right, so we have two examples. Again, you have to first determine what your starting point is going to be. Okay, so if I'm looking at the first example, my starting point, I have a 2 and I have a negative 4 or a minus 4. So my starting point would be negative 2 because I want to use the opposite sign, and positive 4, again, opposite sign for my x and y. And then my slope is negative 3 over 4. Okay, so I'm going to graph the starting point, which would be negative 2 comma 4, which is right there. Okay, that's the point negative 2 comma 4. And then from there, my slope is negative 3 over 4, which means I'm going down 3 and to the right 4. So down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's my second point. Connect my points, and we know to draw arrows at the end because they continue on, even though the graph ends. All right, let's take a look at the second one. Okay, so the starting point, again, coming from right there, I have a negative 2, and I have a negative 1, so that means that it's going to be 2 for the x and 1 for the y, and the slope is negative 3 or negative 3 over 1. Okay, again, that's all coming from right here. All right, so we're going to graph our first point, which is 2 comma 1. So I go to the point 2 comma 1 right there. All right, and then the slope is negative 3 over 1, which means I'm going down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. Connect my points, continue in both directions, put an arrow, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so again, with each of these, what you're doing is you are using the equation to get your starting point, and then you are using your slope to tell you which direction to go to get your next point on the line. Again, you need 2 points to graph a line in order to do that accurately. All right, so that's pretty much all you have to know as far as graphing point-slope form goes.